No. Oh. Not recent forget. Okay. Take a picture before, not after. Oh. Man, when? Oh. That is gender relative problem. This morning it was virtually balanced because all of them were online, but anyway. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Actually, Nazanin was not correct. This is the last. The last panel session is dedicated to the naturally occurring radionuclides in building materials, the legal framework, and the challenges for the free market. Let me introduce in an alphabetical order our esteemed panelist, Dr. Bernd Hoffmann, who is unfortunately online, but we are happy to have him, at least online. As he said, he is around 25 years in the radon business. His background is in gamma spectrometry and radon measurement. His PhD thesis was focused on measurement of radon exhalation, emanation, and improvement of methods and devices to measure radon diffusion, exhalation rate, and building materials. Since 2007, he is the head of a section Radon and Norm at the Federal Office for Radiation Protection in Germany. He collaborates with the European Commission, IAEA, and WHO, and he is also a member of the response team to nuclear security events, and since 2011, member of the CEN Working Group 3 on construction products, assessment of release of dangerous substances. The next panelist is Ivana Vojtíková. She worked at SURO for almost all her professional career, and as a researcher dealing with various aspects of radon issues. She started with measurement and mapping and conducted several surveys. She studied nuclear chemistry, but when she saw that radon is not just a technical problem, she studied sociology to get better understanding of the risk perception and public attitudes. Since then, she worked also as a radiation protection on various radiation protection issues, emergency preparedness project, communication, and media analysis. Dr. Helena Jančekovič is a senior inspector counselor from Slovenian Nuclear Safety Administration. She is a physicist who studied in Ljubljana, worked as a researcher using accelerators, and she was trained in Slovenia, other European countries, as well as in the US. She is a regulator for about 30 years, and she started working at the Slovenian Nuclear Safety Administration in 2021. Last 20 years, she was heavily involved in the harmonization of European basic safety standards, and she is former chair of the group of experts referred to in Article 31 of the European Atom Treaty, Euratom Treaty. At the present, she is the vice chair of this committee. From 2017, she is the chair of Working Party on Natural Resources, which also drafted Radiation Protection 193, Radon in Workplaces, published in 2020. She also collaborates with the European Commission, IAEA, and conducted about 30 international missions related to control of exposure due to ionizing radiation. Last but not least, Cristina Nocietelli. Dr. Nocietelli, she is a physicist, and she works in the center, in the National Center for Radiation Protection and Computational Physics of the National Institute of Health in Italy, in the field of natural radioactivity, norm, and building materials for more than 30 years. She was involved in development of in situ gamma spectrometry techniques for estimation of environmental radioactivity of natural and artificial origin, characterization of sources of natural radioactivity, natural radioactivity in drinking, mineral and thermal waters, assessment of health impacts of environmental contamination by NORM. Christina was and still is heavily involved in all the activities connected to NORM, issues of European ALARA network, IAEA activities, and also ENA activities in this field. And she's a member of a radiological and nuclear emergency expert team. So as you can see from the biographies, we have great expert team on the topic of natural radioactivity. And so let me start with Ivana. Maybe you saw two presentations on how the NORM residues can be reused, or they are planned to be reused, and if there is a willingness to reuse them. Could you maybe comment on your experience from the Czech Republic, because you was at the beginning, at the early beginning of discovery of Prepachýskov case. How was it at the beginning, and what does it mean?
Thank you, Katerina. I will speak, I guess, more about my feelings from these two presentations. We all saw that both were about recycling, but each was from an absolutely different point of view, absolutely different perspective. Of course, we know that recycling is useful and the sustainable evolution is necessary, development is necessary. The story of climate changes is in these days very urgent, but on the other side, the story of thousands of peoples who lost or invested all their money and their dreams into their dream house, and they found that it is worthless, is very urgent for me too. For me, this whole story, mainly in the beginning, but also now when the houses come back on the scene, is a big warning for us. What everything can happen when some informations about radioactive material are lost or forgotten. And my concern in the future is, are we able to preserve such information for many, many years, 50 years, 100 years? I am not sure. And the other, what concerns me is what can happen when we are not able to predict the future development, for example, in building technologies or in political situation. Also many years before, to the past. In the second half of the 20th century, nobody in the Czech Republic knew that in several years tight new windows come, and about the evolution of energy prices, which will rise very rapidly. So I ask myself, maybe, are we able to predict the situation to the future? I'm not sure. That are my main feelings.
Okay, thank you. Also, I forgot to mention at the beginning, if there are questions from the audience, just raise your hand and we will give you a mic and for your comments. Actually, what you mentioned, the technology development, which is unpredictable from now, Maybe we can ask Christina on her opinion, because you studied for a long time. What can happen, sorry, what can happen if various amounts of residues, norm residues, are added to different types of building materials, and how it can influence the conditions in the standard?
My experience in this topic is based on a database which was built by me, Rosa Bianca Trevisi, and Federica Leonardi. A database of building materials of around 25,000 radiological information. And of course, a big part of this database is about cement, concrete, but also about norm residues, usually used in a recipe, let me say, in the composition of the building material. So applying the European tool, the index, let me say, the European tool to the normal recipe in Europe used in Europe. That means, for example, fly ash in cement, but aggregates from natural origin, or slag from blast furnace used in cement and applied as in cement and natural aggregates in the composition of concrete. I'm speaking, of course, of average values of residue, non-residues applied to the value of cement in Europe. But we have more than 4,000 information. So we found that nothing happens, let me say. I mean, no material no material shows an index more than 1. But if we use sintered fly ash and sintered blast furnace slag as fine and coarse aggregates, the situation changes a lot. We found a percentage of from 4 to 20% of material with an index more than 1. And, for example, the use of red mud for roof tiles, that looks a very clever and very nice solution to utilize this very dangerous, let me say, norm residues. But what happens? No dose for the inhabitants, but when you think about the end of life of the building material, what happens? The red mud is plenty of radium and thorium, a lot, but also cadmium and all heavy metals, really polluting the environment. So the idea is that the increase of use of these materials has to be really controlled in a shared way, at European level, because the risk is the introduction day by day of norm in an uncontrolled way, and the risk, as you underlined in your presentation, is that the people not willing, not conscious, can be exposed to increased environmental radioactivity.
Which brings the topic of other pollutants, not only natural radionuclides, but also heavy metals, which then can be probably released once. Thank you, Christina, for your view. You mentioned regulation. So we have Helena here because she is a regulator, experienced regulator, also from the Article 31 group of experts. So would you comment on what was the development and mainly what is seen in the future?
Thank you very much. I am very happy that, Christina, that you mentioned this beautiful database, because everyone is looking to your database. This is the famous database related to really huge amount of experiments. However, actually, we are at the beginning of the story, how to control building materials. Because as it was said already before, Tanya said we don't have data what happened in Czech Republic, that we don't have published data, what are the problems, and that's true. So we are somehow at the beginning how to establish a good regulatory regime taken from cradle to grave. So really to understand the end life of building material. And the regulation in European Union is going in parallel in two directions, somehow supporting each other. One direction is European BSS, where we have a clear control related to gamma exposure and index and so on. However, this is just one small article and every country can be very flexible, so we don't have basically harmonization if we are talking really honestly. We have only few lines what we have to do as member states. We have to make a list of materials we are going to control, and then when we put on the market for this material, member states should have activity concentration index and basically find out if somebody can get more than 1 millisievert, and this is reference level. And of course, then it's up to the member state what to do with this material if we are in troubles. So that's very, very little. And then the second part is construction regulations, construction product regulations, which is now going to be published, I believe, at the end of this year. And here we will have some more harmonization, because it will be basically really a digital passport. We won't have harmonization, as I understand, in the way that, for example, in Spain, there will be different rules than in Germany. But if somebody will import material from Morocco, he or she will have to say, okay, this is fine for Germany and this is not fine for Morocco, for Spain. So basically, this is something what we are all waiting. And we receive a very clear information from European Commission that please continue your work on building materials, because this certification is going to have only limited scope. Every country will have to look to the material which is there, because material is usually used a local one. Majority of material is usually local one. So this is something what, as I said, is start. It's not the end. So we have a lot of very serious questions in front of us.
If I make a comment or ask, so the construction product regulation focuses not directly on the building materials as understood in the EU BSS as the material for the building of habitable buildings, let's shorten it, but also for other types of building and construction products.
Absolutely, you are right. Basically, building material in the European Union BSS means material which is used for building where people are actually living. Mm-hmm. Now, construction products regulation tackles all, mm-hmm. including building mm-hmm. Material. So
it's much broader.
It's much broader, and radioactivity is just a small part, just a very, very tiny small part, and that's why it's also in a way, very difficult to manage, mm-hmm. because everything should be consistent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's challenging, definitely, I can imagine. And I would like to ask Bernd Hoffmann, as he is member of the let's call it standardization working groups. Several times we mentioned that it would be great to have radon included somehow in the regulation, not only the gamma dose rate, but how to include exhalation of radon from the building material. And yeah, I remember your presentation during the Prague Radon Conference several years ago, and at that time, you seem to be a bit that it's a task full of challenges. So could you comment, please, on the current development in this field?
Yes, sure. But first, I want to correct some small aspect. It was said that the construction production regulation would be something new. It is not new. We have since years, decades, construction production directive and regulation now. But now there's a movement to modernize these regulations, bring it a new version of this regulation on the market. So that's I have to be clear. Then since 2011 around, we are working under the CPR to standardize the assessment and measurement of radionuclides in building materials. If you want to do something like a standard for radon exhalation on a European basis, on a European level, you have to keep in mind, in my opinion, around three aspects. First of this, the CEN Technical Committee 351 WG3, where I'm working on, works under the mandate of the EU construction products regulation, and not under the mandate of the Euratom basic safety standards for radiation protection. There are two different directives or regulations, two different treaties, different acting persons, DG GROW versus DG Energy, and different objectives. Restriction of use of norm or materials and free market on the other side. The second main topic is what comes first, the chicken and egg problem. Do we have first regulation and then standard, or we should have first standard and then regulation? Under the CPR, it's very clear. You have first national requirements for something like radon exhalation rates on building materials, or regulations on a maximum accepted radon concentration based on building materials, or something like this. First, there have to be national rules and regulations for this. Then the CEN can start working on standards. And the third point aspect is that these standards related and under the CPR have to be very specific. They have very specific requirements and therefore differ significantly from ISO standards or something like this. First of all, for them, they must be harmonized. That means to take existing standards into account, but then they represent the reference method. There must be horizontal, which means one standard for all products. There cannot be more than one standard for sand, or standard for concrete, or standard for something else. There's one standard, one measurement standard for all materials. And last point is, so CEN standard for building products has to be very specific. You have to define each parameter very clear, very specific. There's no place for degrees of freedom. You can choose values or parameters from a bunch one. No, it must be very specific. And this is a great problem if you, or great challenge, if you have something like exhalation rate from building materials where we have different ways to measure it. Open can, closed can. We even not know which parameter, which result is the right one. Do we say, do we relate it to the mass, or do we relate it to the surface of a material, the exhalation rate? Even this is not clear yet. So before we start, we have to fix some aspects first, and then we can start doing some standardization work, which then needs a lot of time. Think about in decades.
Thank you, Bernd. If I get one of the points correctly, you said that the first is the regulation, the national regulation, and then the standards can be like the work on the standards can be started or established. Christina, may I ask you? Sorry. Yeah. In one of your papers, you suggested some kind of index for radon exhalation.
Yes, because
Yeah, it's
yes, it works. As we tried to build an index, including also the part of those due to the radon, but this is impossible because the the reference level for dwelling doses due to sorry, due to gamma ray and due to radon are so different that it's impossible to put them together in a single in a single amount, in a single expression, take into account both the source of those. And linking to the discussion of what Bernd told, in a paper, don't remember which one, we demonstrated the strong need of a shared, at least a European standard for the radon exhalation measurement from building materials, since we demonstrated that on over thousands of data, we found just 59 materials with common information, that could be used to compare this the information of this building material. Just 59 over more than 2,000 building materials. This was the clear demonstration of the need, strong need of a common approach to the measurement of exhalation, radon exhalation from building material.
Helena, could you maybe comment on that from the position of regulations?
Yes, absolutely. I would like to comment because 5 years ago, when we started to draft the document on building materials, we had a very, I would say, alive discussion to include radon exhalation, yes or no. And because we don't have data, we cannot really draw any conclusion. So here we need science, we need data, we need analytical methods and so on. And then we can actually proceed with harmonization on the level of European Union. So at each meeting, there is a discussion, oh, we should include this. Yes, but first we need science. And then when we can include, of course, we all know that it will be wise to include, but we need strong data, how to do this, what are the results, and as it was pointed out, it's very rare to have data and to trust this data.
Thank you. So we have to publish.
Yes.
And do more research. do more research.
The research we have already.
Okay.
Use the
Yes.
data we have.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I'm a completely lay person in this, but I have one maybe stupid question, I don't know, but when you are thinking about harmonization for the levels of the building material, do you take into account also potential cumulative risk, synergetic risk? For instance, if I build in the house one material with norm residues, in Netherlands, for instance, where they have 50 becquerel per cubic meter average, is probably something different than if I build in the same material in the house in Walloon region, where we have much higher. We try to go down to the reference level, to the 200 becquerel per cubic meter, but not all the time is possible. So does it make sense? How do you intend to harmonize this through all around the Europe, where we have Netherlands, we have Malta, and then we have Czech Republic, and we have Walloon region, and in Slovenia part, and so on. Do you take this into account, or is not important, maybe?
Thank you, Tanya. Actually, regarding gamma exposure, it is actually taken into account that the reference level is 1 millisievert per year above background. So it is taken into account that, for example, if you have a higher background in one country or another one, it doesn't matter. So reference level is 1 millisievert above this background, local background. So for gamma radiation, this is actually solved. Now for radon and building materials, it's not solved, because for the radon and building materials, we don't have any rules. Basic safety standard is talking about 300 becquerel per cubic meter, no, as a reference level on the average, no matter from where the source is. And it's not particularly related to building material as such. And I would just like to say that building materials in the European BSS are also controlled from the point of view when you actually put this on the market. So basically, if you are a distributor or if you're a manufacturer, then you have this problem. How you do this with old houses is completely another story.
Mm-hmm. But if I may say, at this moment, and probably it will be next 5 to 10 years, still in Europe, every country has different regulation. Also, when they import the building material, every country controls or not control the material. So how can you as a regulator guarantee that something which is imported in Netherlands will not end up here in Slovenia?
Well, the basic idea of this construction product regulation, as I mentioned, it's true what was said in 2011. It's the old one. Now we have a new one on the table, and we believe it will be published till the end. At this point, when you will import, you will have actually all documentation with this material. And in this documentation, if the country will decide, okay, we need information on gamma exposure, then the information for the Netherlands, for the Spain, etc., for all countries should be there. One country might decide that it's not important for them because they have another way how they are using this material. But basically, this is the idea that you get material as such in your country with information according to your local rules. And this is actually the idea. This is certification, so that the producer and manufacturer now will have to look to all these somehow 27 I would say national regulations. Of course, this is nicely organized, but it will be actually a matrix, because we don't have regulation in that way that we will say, for this kind of material, you must do this. No. BSS is saying, you as a national regulator can decide that I need for this material or I don't need. Because it depends on your local circumstances, how you are looking, how you are using this material.
Bernd?
Here's the question.
I can only emphasize this. as this will be part of the declaration of performance of a material, and you get a long list of parameters and building material has to, or construction product has to fulfill nationally and harmonized. And this is will again, radiation will be only one small part of this long list of requirements. This is nothing new, nothing special for radiation for us or for building product companies. We are just a part of an ongoing and almost a normal situation with this.
There's a question.
Sorry. I'm just going back to the radon emanation in building materials. We at ERCA, WGNAT group, we did a survey asking several questions about norming building materials. We have already more or less 20 replies from the members, and we don't have official results yet, but very soon will be published in the ERCA website. So in a couple of months you can see the results. But I can tell you that most of the countries don't consider radon emanation, but there are countries that are performing new assessments to studies to the building materials, like Portugal and France, and they are considering now radon exhalation. Okay.
So there will be more data for further analysis. More data, yeah.
If I can somehow continue with the thought, what Tanya actually said, how will we know what is happening in Europe? I think that we are now thinking only to new buildings, import, production, distribution. This is one part. The second part is when you as a regulator has a problem with one material, what you are going to do. And this is something what we have to figure out, so that we will have these safety records that 10 years ago we allowed that these buildings are going to be built in this particular way, and then we will have to really pay attention that these safety records are going to last for years. Because when we are dealing with natural radionuclides, we are dealing really with very, very long period of time. So I think that we should not only look to, as I said, okay, import, new buildings, etc. But what if you have a problem and you actually put fire off for 10 years, let's say, but then everything is forgotten and you are again in Czech Republic and the case. So this is something what we have to figure out, how we will keep all these safety records when we have a problematic material. Thank you.
Thank you. So unfortunately, well, our time is limited. And I would like to ask all the panelists for their concluding remarks. Who is the volunteer to start? Bernd?
Okay.
Yeah, it was.
Oh, yeah, it was really nice to hear that. We got some new requirements for building materials. That's a radon exhalation rate is not out of the context, and more and more member states think about the construction production regulation, which is very important, and I only can encourage you all to get involved in the work of the CEN TC 351 WG3, because we still need experts to be involved and not and also to have a balance between industry representatives and regulators and authorities. So please come to the CEN TC 351 WG3 and get involved in European standardization.
Thank you. Helena?
Thank you. I would just like to say that this is really difficult area because so many actors are involved it is interdisciplinary area, not just physicists, not just construction workers, construction regulators, etc. But many, many other people are involved. And that's why I think it's really challenging how to make the system that it will work on a very, very long term, including this, as already said, safety record. Thank you.
Thank you. Christina?
I agree with Elena, and I can say that probably already I told this idea that the recycling norm in building materials is something that probably is possible, but it must be carried out in under an official control, with the memory of the history of the story, with the situation very well clear, and with a lot of witnesses.
Yes, you're right. Thank you. And Ivana?
So I will express my hope that this sad story will not be forgotten, and it can serve us as reminder that we should be very responsible when bringing all the radioactive material on the market and use it because it could be quite similar disaster as in the Czech Republic. I hope it will not repeat in the future.
Thank you. I would like to thank to the panelists. So the main points are collection of data, reliable open data provided to the regulators, to the standardization bodies, providing your knowledge and expertise to both regulators and standardization bodies. And in next 20 years, we can repeatedly meet together and discuss the development. Thank you very much for your time, and see you next time.